Hello friends, hello professionals, Simone here, and I'm back with a part 2 to my prior video. Some of the things that I've seen that could help you develop your professional career. And I'm gonna get the disclaimers out of the way really quickly. The views are my own. They don't represent any regulatory authority or international standard setting body, and it's definitely not advice. I want to dive right back into this video. The topics are not the typical discussion points for a regulator, but I think it's so critically important. And in the last video, I was looking at some of the things that may have hampered compliance professionals or professionals in financial services industry, or even beyond, from developing as competent professionals, things that hold you back, things that stop you from getting a promotion, things that stop you from being recognized. And there are a lot of modalities that happen in the real world of work. But I think it's important to touch on some of these things because, frankly, some of the things I wish somebody told me when I was younger in my career. And it's one of the things that you learn as you go. In 2021, or whenever you're watching this video, because this video is going to be out there on the internet, in 2021, there's so much information available on social media. And definitely, YouTube is a great source for content and for learning. But I just want to go over a few more points that I think that you should look out for in terms of whether these are things you need to address that are potentially harming you and your professional development. One of the areas that I've seen hamper people is a failure to develop both your strengths and your weaknesses. Now, in relation to developing your strengths, you know that you're good at something. And what people will tend to do when they're good at something, they rest back. They don't necessarily work on perfecting that thing that they're good at because they're good at it. But guess what? There are others who are not so good at it that are working. And if you don't move to improve your strengths, you're basically stagnated. Somebody will come and overtake you. And if people recognize that that's your strengths, they can see that you're not putting in all of that effort because it's something you're good at. So you want to continually improve. I love the word KAIZEN, continuous self-improvement. It's a Japanese word. And I'll have it in the description below. But in terms of your weaknesses, some people shy away from developing them because they just want to say that they're not good at something. And they would ask friends for help and they would try to not do it and siphon it off and leave it for another time. That is also a huge mistake. We all are not good at something. And it's important to work on those weaknesses so that they're not so bad and you can always improve on those areas. And when you do, you tend to realize that that thing that was a weakness was just a challenge you needed to accomplish to become a better you and to become a better worker, to become a better person, whatever it is. Work on the weaknesses as well as the strengths. Another point that I've seen that really hurts people is a lack of situational awareness. Now, for example, you need to recognize that everything has a context. And what may be appropriate in a particular setting is definitely not appropriate in another setting. For example, you have been overlooked for an issue or someone has stolen your work. Where do you raise those concerns? It's definitely not at a management meeting in the first instance. There are very sophisticated ways of dealing with certain issues, but you have to be aware that not every situation requires you to have a knee-jerk reaction or a very caustic response, very acidic to some slight or some issue. And sometimes the best approach is recognizing when you need to take a step back, reflect, and determine what's the best approach. Situational awareness is one of the things that I think makes for a very effective professional and person. It's always useful to take a few steps back and reflect and analyze a situation. Or in fact, take that helicopter view. Look at the situation from a very wide perspective and see whether you need to change your approach in how you deal with that particular issue. We have a lot of different contexts that face us in work and in our personal lives, but let's keep this to work. And as compliance professionals, let me focus on the compliance professionals. When you are having a discussion about a particular ticklish issue, you are not going to have that discussion with all of the staff present. You're going to have that discussion with just a small set of people. And having certain discussions that are not properly ventilated within the firm with the regulator is something you probably shouldn't do, because the situation says to the regulator that this is some infighting. It doesn't score you any points. And I've seen compliance professionals think that that is a strategy to get at what they want. They think, I'm going to go to the regulator and I'm going to air the dirty laundry because I've been telling the board these things for how many weeks now and they're not listening to me, and I'm going to have this to say at the meeting. And by the way, yes, regulators do want you to bring your compliance officers to the meeting. We think it's important, but compliance officers, that is, you are still getting paid from that firm. The regulator is not paying you. It's important to recognize what the situation calls for. Go back to one of my prior videos where I talked about, being an effective communicator. It's not for you to get into a fight. Be aware of the situation and what the situation calls for. Now, one of my other points that I think hurts people's careers, and this one might be controversial. So if you have differing views, these are my views, but you might have a different view, definitely drop it in the comments below. But this one is a bit of a pet peeve to me: hoarding information. People who hoard information with the guise of wanting to hold on to power because they have information that others don't have. People, we're in the 21st century, if you didn't get the memo. Information is widely available. And if someone is driven enough, they will find that information. And you holding on to information, you may have a bit of superiority for a time, but not for long, because things are always changing and things are evolving. And that bit of information that you're clutching so close to your chest is going to be irrelevant. Dependent on the industry or the field, it'll be irrelevant in 6 to 12 months. And dependent on whether it's a nuanced piece of information, it may be irrelevant in 6 to 12 weeks. So don't hoard information. I think it's so important that we actually help each other and share the information and move on. If I hoard information, it doesn't allow me the opportunity to grow myself. I need to be guarding this information and thinking about who gets it. No, I'm on to the next. And so I think for professionals, it's important for you to know what you know. I'm not saying just give out information willy-nilly, because that's not what it's about either. It's about having that situational awareness, so go back to the prior point, but also don't hoard the information. It doesn't serve you well in the long run. Now guys, this last one is contextual, but maybe it impacts you because of where you are. One of my biggest issues in this region is this small-minded thinking that I live on a small island and I cannot effect change. Nothing could be further from the truth. In this region, I have seen so many different examples from so many different sectors that show we can punch way above our weight. And it's one of the things I actually hate to hear. Oh, this island is so small, or this industry is so small, or, that's small-minded thinking. And to quote Nelson Mandela, thinking small serves you no good. It's important for you to recognize that through technology, through all the platforms that are available, social media, the internet, the ability to engage with people around the world that in another time we would never, ever, ever had met, that you can actually impact and effect change from where you are, regardless as to where you are in the world. It's just to get brave and recognize that you have a voice and to use that voice for whatever you're passionate about. My passion, I've said it in a lot of videos, I love being a part of the learning process. It's part of why I've developed courses. But did I develop courses just for the sake of developing courses? No, I've taught over the years, and in teaching, I find the interaction and the learning, because I learned from my students as well. I find the interaction and the learning so enriching. And having the discussions in the Caribbean with Caribbean professionals was one of the best things that I could have had in my experience to engage on wider stages, international standard setters, again, not their views, but it's one of the things that made me different and being able to bring a different perspective to the table. And it's another point that I would want to raise is that when global standards are changing, because we don't say anything, they change around us. We're an afterthought because they don't hear us, and we need to change that. And that's one of the things that I'm really passionate about. So guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, I would encourage you to please do so. You know, what are you waiting on? And definitely drop some comments down below. This one, I definitely want you to share because it's applicable to everybody, not just compliance professionals, not just regulators, not just if you work in the financial services industry. It's a changing world, and I see the lines between a lot of things blurring, and there's going to be a lot of learning between all of these sectors. And make sure you stay tuned for one of my next videos because it's going to be a bit more fun, a little less serious. We're going to talk crypto. You get to find out what cryptocurrencies that I own. Yes, I do hold cryptocurrencies as a regulator, fun stuff. And I am really intrigued into the DeFi space, decentralized finance. I think it's one of the things that will make a huge difference for the Caribbean as a region. So definitely subscribe and stay tuned for my future videos. And I'm looking forward to continuing the discussion with you here at the Sea of Regulation.